I was supposed to go to the dermatologist today, and it got canceled on me at the last minute, so it looks like I can record. I didn't think I'd be able to record because usually when I go to the dermatologist, I wind up with like a whole bunch of pock marks on my face and stuff. I guarantee you the next time you see me, I'm going to have a big giant mark right there because this thing's going to be taken off. And whenever I talk about the skin stuff that I wind up having done, people always say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry you have this skin condition." I don't have a skin condition. I don't have psoriasis or scleroderma or something like that. It's just sun damage. It's just being pale and living in Texas. That's all it is. So I don't know. It bugs me when people say it's a condition. It's not really a condition. It's just damage. So hey, let me start real quick by saying that I really want to thank everybody for the comments that I got on last week's video. I know it was kind of a downer, kind of a little too real kind of thing. But no, I got so many great comments and emails and people reaching out on various social media telling me, that they identify with that the whole thing resonates with them and they get where I'm coming from. And there were a few people that were a little overly concerned and like, dude, take care of yourself. It's like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't know how many times I said in the video that it's really a good thing when it comes down to it. No, I just want to say really quickly thanks to everybody for the kind words. And not only that, actually, it's not even the kind words directed toward me so much, but there were a lot of people that got in to the into the comments and we're kind of talking about what they're going through, and then people were supporting them. And really, more than anything, if I can pat myself on the back, it's I'm really proud of the fact that the audience that is around this channel and the community around this channel is made up of such wonderful, amazing, and supportive people. And again, not even so much directed at me, but directed at each other. It really means a lot, and you guys are awesome. And I just wanted to say thanks for that. Anyway, now that we're all kumbaya, let's talk politics. Actually, I want to do the opposite of talking about politics. I want to talk about things that maybe we can all agree on in some way. Everybody's so politicized and so divided right now. I feel like fundamentally, though, we all kind of want the same things. It's just become so blah. I really don't spend a lot of time talking about politics on my channel. I avoid it like the plague for the obvious reasons, because it's just so toxic and people, I really don't know how political YouTubers do it. Like I just, the comment section becomes a cesspool if I even become anywhere near a political comment. So I'm sure the comments on this one are going to be beautiful. But so I do it for that obvious reason, but I also avoid talking about politics. I mean, I definitely have my political views, but I try to remain as neutral as possible on the channel because, I feel like once you make a career out of being on the left or on the right, it makes it a lot harder for you to change your mind. It makes it a lot harder for you to be fluid and flexible when it comes to the issues and stuff, because let's face it, if you're Sean Hannity and suddenly you decide that you're a liberal or something, you can't just come out and say that. Like, you can't just turn around and announce that you have some viewpoint that's like completely contradictory to everything you said for the last 20 years. These political commentators, and I used him for an example, but it goes on both sides. You become a brand, and your brand is this particular political ideology. And that's 1,000 times harder to change than just changing your mind, which changing your mind is something we should be able to do. When you have new information that contradicts the way you see things, you should be able to go like, oh, I need to introduce this new information and now see the world a little bit differently and change my perspective on things. That's what we need to be doing. And suddenly we've all become political pundits because, social media, we're all sharing stuff that reflects how we see things, and that makes it harder. Every single time you share something, it makes it harder for you to be flexible and change your mind, which is what we need to be doing. So even though I definitely have my political opinions, I do try to hold those cards pretty close to my chest because I don't want to feel like I can't change my mind publicly later on. And I think anybody who really pays attention to my channel kind of knows where I lie. I don't completely hide it, but it's not something that I lean into either. So for one thing, and I don't know why this this shouldn't be a political thing, and I don't really think it falls along political lines, but let's just talk about it. Can we get rid of the penny, for crying out loud? You know, CGP Grey covered this really well. Actually, I kind of went down the CGP Grey rabbit hole, some of his old classics. I'll be bringing it up over and over again here. I'll put a link to them down in the description. But they just have no buying power anymore. It costs almost 2 cents to make a cent, which is insane. It's just a huge weight on our economy. And it's a huge, like, most of the pennies I have are in a jar over here, which is true of most people. So they're not even a part of the economy anymore. And the only way that you can really use pennies is to put them in something like a Coinstar machine, which actually takes money away from you so that you can spend the money you already have. It's ridiculous. You know, many other countries around the world have gotten rid of their 1 cent pieces. The military does not use them in overseas bases. We've gotten rid of coinage before. The halfpenny was something that we used to have. We got rid of it because it didn't have any buying power anymore. And by the way, I think I'm correct about this. The halfpenny, when it got taken out of circulation in, what is it, 1857, it had more buying power than today's dime. So we could really get rid of the penny and the nickel while we're at it. Anyway, that is something that doesn't seem to fall along party lines. I haven't seen that become a political issue yet. I'm sure they'll find a way, but I feel like that's a place to start. Can we just agree on that? Can we just agree on something here? The other thing I would like to see adapted a lot more, and I know this has gone into practice, I believe in Maine, I think Maine does this now, is ranked choice voting, or really any alternative voting system to the winner-take-all, first-past-the-post voting system that we have right now. You know, regardless of where you stand, you know, there are populists on the right and populists on the left that definitely agree with this. This two-party system that we have going on right now, I think everybody kind of hates it. Nobody really feels represented. They're both very corporate entities, and they cater to corporate interests more than the people. And we can't have a third party, not because there's no interest in it, but because systemically, the way our elections are done, it doesn't support it. Any kind of third party is always a spoiler. You know, I don't think it's controversial to say that Ralph Nader, if it wasn't for him, Al Gore would be president. I don't think it's unfair to say that probably the reason Bill Clinton got elected the first time was because of H. Ross Perot. And 9 times out of 10, people want to vote for a third party, but they don't because they feel like they're just throwing away their vote, which you are. In the current system that we have, you absolutely are. But in a ranked choice voting system, it can get kind of complex, and obviously I'm not going to get really into the details here, but you basically rank who you like. So let's just say you're a big old lefty. You could vote for the Green Party first, and then the Democratic Party second, and then whatever Libertarian third or something like that. And if you just hate the Republicans, then they could be the last one on your list. And basically, you would be able to vote for who you want and not feel like your vote was being thrown away if, say, the Green Party didn't win. Or if you're more on the right, say you're a libertarian and you just really can't stand the Republican Party, but you know that voting for a libertarian candidate is throwing away your vote, you could actually vote for a libertarian candidate, make Republicans your second, and then if and when the libertarian doesn't wind up winning, your vote could go to the Republican. It's not a perfect system, and if they are doing it in Maine, and there are people in Maine watching this, and you have some issues with it, I would love to hear about it. But I've always said I'm really more of a systems guy. If you really want to change the way things are done, you need to change the systems that are in place around it. And this whole, we've always done, they call it first past the post, winner take all. We've all been doing this. I mean, from the beginning of this country, our entire lives, all the people in the United States, this is how we've done this. And we almost feel like there's no other way to do it because it's all we know. And that leads to complacency. It leads to people not wanting to be involved in the system, not feeling like they're being represented. And I feel like, if nothing else, that is something that could shake things up. And maybe it wouldn't immediately turn into a system where there's 4 or 5 different parties. But, you know, over time, I think it would encourage more involvement. And I think it would also encourage the major political parties to not just be a slugfest fighting against each other. They would have to win on their merits. They would have to win on their ideas. They would have to actually court voters instead of just throwing fear at them all the time. If I could run things, the third thing I would do here, I would get rid of gerrymandering. Now, depending on whose party is in charge, you might be really in favor of gerrymandering. Here in Texas, we are gerrymandered to shit. And if you're a Republican, that's great because that's the way the districts were lined up, and the Republican Party comes out on top in that respect. In other states, it might be the Democratic Party that does the same thing. It is definitely not just a Republican Party thing. I think it's terrible. Politicians should not be picking their voters. The voters should be picking the politicians. And I also don't think that the gerrymandering it doesn't give fair representation to people. Everybody should be represented. Everybody's needs and everybody's cultures should be represented. So in my case, as I was looking at the ballots and stuff around the election, I took a look at my district and I realized that literally, I'm really not joking, I could go in my backyard and with a slingshot, I could probably throw a rock into the next district. I'm like on the very edge of it. But I live on the east side of Dallas, and there's just like this little wedge that is carved out of East Dallas. And then the rest of my district goes like almost all the way to Louisiana. It's like all rural except for this tiny little part that I live in. So of course, the people who are elected for my district are the people that are going to represent those rural country areas. And okay, they should be represented, but where I live should be represented too. If everybody should have equal representation, and that's just not what's happening here right now. But I think we can all agree that all communities should have representation. Their concerns and their needs should be represented. And gerrymandering is specifically designed to prevent that. So I'm against it. So now let's talk about the Electoral College. And I'll be honest, that this one's going to split the crowd. This is going to split the room. And I know this because it splits me a little bit. So growing up in a really small town, I definitely understand what it's like to feel like you are not being represented. I know I'm going back to that again, but I know what it's like to feel like nobody cares about you. And I 100% think that the more rural, lower population states should be represented equally in our government, obviously. So my opinion on this has shifted to where, like, look, if it's the president, if it is a national vote for a national candidate, for this national position, the position that represents the entire country, then I think the overall will of the country should be what comes out on top, right? And the reason why I feel like that's okay, even though like I said, I'm very much in favor of the smaller population states being represented, is because they are overrepresented in the Senate. North Dakota, that has like 100 people living there, I'm exaggerating, don't take it personal, North Dakota, but they have the same number of representation in the Senate as California, that has like a fifth of the U.S. population in it, which is, yes, of course, I'm using exaggerations here, but you get the point. So the Senate will always kind of overrepresent population-wise, proportionally smaller population states. So I feel like that kind of balances things out. That makes sure that the smaller states have a voice in government. And so that's why I've tended away from the Electoral College over time. I feel like the national election for president should reflect the popular vote, whereas the Senate can overrepresent for the smaller states. And last but not least, if I've become more of a single issue voter on anything, it's been that I think that we do need to get money out of politics as much as possible. And I know, again, depending on which party is in charge, if your party is in charge and it's doing great in the current system, you're going to hate this idea. But again, for me, it all comes down to, I think that people need to be represented fairly. Like I saw an ad, I guess there was some candidate, this was not this election, this was 4 years ago. There was some candidate that was for public funding of elections. And I saw this commercial, and the commercial was like, so-and-so wants to use your tax dollars to run his political campaign. And I'm like, yeah, yes, that's the idea, yeah. Give both candidates the same amount of money and let the best ideas win. Not just who can raise the most money from their billionaire friends, not just who can be bought the most, not who can run the most ads. Let the best ideas win. can we all agree on that? Can we all agree that the best ideas should win, not necessarily the people who can buy their way into these positions? Now, I know there's a lot of nuance in a lot of this, and I've seen some other really great videos that have gone into that nuance on all these things that I'm saying. But I just wanted to put this out. Like, I don't think that these should be political issues. I think that like I said, we all want the same thing. We all want fair representation. We all want the best ideas to win. And those are the things that seem to get in the way of that happening. And of course, these are pie in the sky ideas as far as I'm concerned. I don't see them ever changing because the people who are in charge, who have the power to change these things, are the ones that have benefited from things being this way. So I don't see them actually changing anytime soon. And actually, I had an idea, and I don't know if I'm actually going to do this, but I had an idea for a video that was kind of like debating if we were to start the United States all over again. Let's just call it what it is. The Constitution in our current system of government was set up 240 years ago, and the world is a vastly different place now. What if we started over from scratch? I'm not advocating doing this. I'm not saying let's burn down Washington yet. I'm basically saying, like, if we had to start the country right now, knowing what we know, having the technology that we have, what would that look like? What could that look like if we just started over from scratch? I'm just kind of curious. What ideas would float to the top? What would people most want to see represented in this new country if we were going to start something like that? What institutional things are going on right now that are just so corrosive and so toxic and so not working that we absolutely need to get rid of it. Of course, like I said, it's all pie in the sky thinking. None of this is actually going to happen, but it's an interesting thought experiment. So anyway, I've had a lot of people asking me to talk politics and talk about this election and everything, and I think this is about as close as I'm going to get to it. I really, like I said, I want to avoid politics on my channel. I definitely have my personal political views, and they usually line up around some of the ideals that I was just talking about there. Just fair representation, and letting the best ideas win, and not having everything be a us versus them mentality. It leads us to where we are right now, and I don't think where we are right now is a very good place. So, cool. This will be a fun comment section. Let's keep in mind how supportive and wonderful all of you were in the last video, and try to maintain that in this one. All right, so since I have some extra time today, I'm gonna get some work done. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Again, thanks again for all the support last week and being great people, and yeah, chat this one up. Let's see what comes out. All right, I'll catch y'all next time. Later.